My name is Lily Harper. The first thing I remember is the smell of Grandpa's workshop, sawdust and lemon oil, thick enough to chew. I was 4, barefoot on the concrete floor, watching him plane a cedar board into something smooth and singing. He'd hum old Johnny Cash off, key, and every time the shavings curled up like ribbon, he'd wink at me and say, "That's how you turn rough into beautiful, Lil." Outside, the Montana sky pressed low and silver. Inside, the radio crackled with weather warnings. My parents were supposed to pick me up that afternoon. They never showed. Grandpa just closed the shop door, lifted me onto his hip, and carried me home through the first flurries. I kept looking back for headlights that never came. He raised me in that same cedar, scented house on the edge of Missoula. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen where the linoleum peeled like sunburnt skin. He worked double shifts at the mill, came home with pine pitch under his nails, and still found time to teach me how to bait a hook, how to read the grain in wood, how to spot a lie in someone's eyes. People leave, he'd say, wiping his hands on a rag that used to be one of my baby blankets. But the land stays, and so do we. A school was fine. I wasn't popular. But I had a corner table in the library and a best friend named Mara who traded me her mom's tamales for my grandpa's venison jerky. Summers smelled like creek water and charcoal. Winters smelled like the kerosene heater and the cocoa he made too sweet. Every Christmas he'd hand me a wrapped box the size of a shoebox. Inside was always a single carved animal. Bear, elk, fox, each one more detailed than the last. "For your menagerie," he'd grin. By 16, I had a whole shelf of them staring down at my bed like quiet guardians. I thought that was my life, small, steady, carved from the same honest wood as Grandpa's animals. I got decent grades, a partial scholarship to the state college 20 miles away, and a plan to become a large animal vet. Grandpa drove me to orientation in his rattling Ford, windows down, country station blaring. He squeezed my shoulder on the library steps. "You're the first Harper to go past high school, kid. Make it count." That night he had a cough. Just a smoker's hack, I told myself. 2 months later, the doctor said stage 4 lung cancer. 6 months after that, I was holding his hand while machines beeped slower and slower. He was thin, translucent, but his eyes still had that workshop glint. "Listen close, Lil," he rasped. "The will's with Mr. Delgado. Everything goes to you. House, land, the account. Don't let anybody tell you different." I nodded, tears dripping onto his knuckles. He died at 3:17 a.m. I remember, because the clock on the wall had a second hand that sounded like a metronome counting down the rest of my childhood. The funeral was small. Mara came, a couple mill guys in stiff flannel, and then, pulling up in a shiny black SUV that looked alien against the gravel driveway, my parents. I hadn't seen them since I was 4. Dad had gained weight. His beard was threaded with gray. Mom wore sunglasses even though the sky was overcast. They hugged me like we were at a family reunion. Dad's cologne made my stomach flip. Mom's perfume was floral and sharp, like wilted lilies. "We're so sorry, sweetheart," she whispered into my hair. We were young. We made mistakes. I wanted to scream. Instead, I stood there, wooden, while they introduced themselves to neighbors as Lily's folks. Mr. Delgado, Grandpa's lawyer, read the will in his cramped office that smelled of instant coffee and old paper. House mine, 50 acres of timberland mine, savings and investments mine. Total value once the timber was appraised $2.7 million. Dad's eyebrows shot up. Mom's manicured hand flew to her chest. "All of it?" she asked, voice honeyed. To a 20-year-old. Delgado didn't blink. Her old was clear. Lily is his sole heir. In the parking lot, Dad cornered me by Grandpa's truck. "Pumpkin, this is a lot of responsibility. Your mom and I, we could help manage things. Invest wisely. You focus on school." I stared at the rust bubbling along the fender. Grandpa said, "Don't let anybody tell me different." Mom laughed. "Too bright." He was sick, honey. Emotional. "We're family. I drove home with their business card burning a hole in my pocket. For a week they texted, then called. Then showed up unannounced with grocery bags and photo albums I'd never seen. Pictures of me as a toddler on beaches I didn't remember. They talked about healing, about second chances. Dad fixed the leaky faucet without asking. Mom baked lasagna that tasted like cardboard and guilt. I let them in because the house felt too quiet without Grandpa's humming. I let them in because I was 20 and grieving and stupid. Then came the letter from a law firm in California. Thick cream envelope, gold embossed. Inside a lawsuit, my parents, biological parents, were contesting the will, claiming Grandpa was of diminished capacity when he wrote it, claiming I'd unduly influenced a dying man, claiming the money should be split fairly among his natural children. I read it on the porch swing, the same one Grandpa rocked me on when thunderstorms scared me. The paper shook so hard I had to set it down. $2.7 million. Everything he'd saved, every extra shift, every skipped vacation. They wanted to slice it up like it was nothing more than a pie cooling on a sill. I didn't cry. I sat there until the stars came out, cold seeping through my hoodie, and felt something harden inside my chest the way cedar hardens when you leave it in the sun too long. The betrayal didn't hit like a punch. It seeped in slow, like spilled coffee through a tablecloth. First the lawsuit papers, then the phone calls from their lawyer, slick and polite, asking for depositions. Then the Facebook posts, mom in a new silk blouse, caption, reunited with my beautiful daughter after too long. Family is everything. The photo was us at Grandpa's grave. She'd cropped out the headstone. I stopped sleeping. The house creaked like it missed him too. I'd walk the hallway at 2 a.m., fingertips brushing the carved animals on the shelf, waiting for the bear to blink. It never did. Mara found me in the campus library, face swollen, highlighter dried to my cheek. Lil, talk. I slid the lawsuit across the table. She read it in silence, then whispered, "They're monsters. They're my parents," I said, tasting rust. Exactly. That night I drove to Grandpa's workshop. The padlock was rusted. I had to kick it twice. Inside, moonlight striped the floor through cracked windows. His tools hung in perfect rows. I sat on the same stool I'd used at 4, knees barely reaching the rung, and opened his ledger, the brown leather book where he tracked every board foot, every overtime hour, page after page of cramped handwriting. At the back, a new section, for Lily, when they come. My breath fogged. I turned the page. He'd written it the week before he died. Instructions. Not legal, just Grandpa. 1. Trust Delgado. He's honest as sea. 2. Record everything. People show who they are when they think no one's watching. 3. Give them enough rope. Then pull. I laughed until I cried, snot on my sleeve. The old man had seen them coming. Their first mistake was assuming I was still the scared kid in the snow. Their second was thinking I'd fight fair. I started small. I answered every call on speaker, saved every voicemail. When Mom left a tearful message about how Grandpa would want us to be a family, I clipped it, dated it, filed it. Dad emailed about investment opportunities in a condo development in Scottsdale, forwarded to Delgado. They wanted discovery. I'd give them discovery, but lawsuits are slow, and I was tired of waiting. I enrolled in a night class intro to digital media. The professor was a retired investigative journalist who smelled like pipe smoke and suspicion. First assignment, create a personal documentary trailer. I smiled for the first time in weeks. I bought a used Sony camcorder with birthday money Grandpa had stashed in a coffee can labeled Zen nails. I set it up in the living room, red light blinking like a heartbeat. Then I invited them over for Sunday dinner. Mom arrived in heels that clicked like accusations. Dad carried a bottle of wine that cost more than Grandpa's monthly pension. I hugged them both, felt Mom's ribs through her cashmere. "I've missed you," I lied. Dinner was venison stew, Grandpa's recipe. I'd burned the carrots on purpose. They tasted like ash. Conversation stayed light until dessert. I set a slice of apple pie in front of Dad. Remember when you used to make this with Grandpa? I asked Mom, voice soft. She blinked. We were so young. I slid a photo album across the table, same one she'd brought weeks ago. But I'd added pages. Bank statements, Grandpa's medical records, a highlighted line. Patient expressed repeated concern that daughter and son-in-law would take the land. A dad's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Where'd you get those? Grandpa kept everything. I smiled. He taught me. Mom reached for the album. I let her see the sticky note on the last page. If they contest, play the tape. I excused myself to check the coffee. In the kitchen, I pressed record on my phone, propped behind the flour canister. When I came back, Dad was whispering, "We just need her to sign the settlement. Split it 3 ways. She'll never know the timber's worth double." Mom hissed, "She's a child. She'll fold." I leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. Child who just recorded that. Dad's face went the color of spoiled milk. Mom's wineglass slipped, shattered on the pine floor Grandpa had laid himself. "You set us up," Dad sputtered. "No," I said. "You set yourselves up. Every time you lied. Every time you smiled at his grave." I uploaded the dinner footage that night. Not the whole thing, just a 2-minute clip. Mom's voice, clear as frost. "She'll never know the timber's worth double." Dad's laugh, greasy. I titled it, "Family Dinner Raw and Uncut," posted to a private channel, sent the link to Delgado with a post-it for discovery. Their lawyer called the next day, voice shaking. Would like to discuss an amicable. I hung up. The plan wasn't a lightning bolt. It was a slow, burning fuse, laid in the dark. I kept the house, kept the land, kept the money in trust. Delgado filed a countersuit for emotional distress and legal fees. Their side dragged it out, motions, delays, depositions that felt like dental work without Novocaine. I showed up in Grandpa's flannel shirts, hair in a braid, looking younger than 21. Let them think I was still breakable. Meanwhile, I built a second life online. The channel started as a school project. Harper's Hollow, a quiet vlog about restoring Grandpa's workshop. I filmed the dust motes in the sunbeams, the way the lathe still smelled like his hands. First video me sanding the workbench, voice over soft. This is where he taught me that broken things can be made whole again. Uploaded on a Tuesday night. By Friday, it had 40,000 views. Comments poured in, people sharing their own lost grandpas, their own small inheritances of love. I never mentioned the lawsuit. Not yet. Mom and Dad kept texting. "We're praying for you. This is tearing the family apart." I saved everyone. Then I started replying, sweet, wounded, eager to reconcile. "I miss you both. Maybe we can talk after the hearing." They took the bait. I invited them to the workshop for what I called a healing day. Told them I wanted to film a segment about moving forward. They arrived in coordinated Patagonia, smiling for the camera like influencers at a retreat. I handed Mom a chisel. "Grandpa taught me with this one. Want to try?" She held it like it might bite. Dad flexed for the lens. "Always loved tools?" He lied. I set the Sony on a tripod. Red light steady. Then I opened the ledger. The real one, not the decoy I'd shown at dinner. Page by page I read aloud. Grandpa's notes from the hospital. Claire called today. Wanted to know how much the land's worth. Told her to leave Lily alone. Another. Mark asked for a loan. Said no. He'll come for her when I'm gone. Mom's face crumpled. He was confused. Was he? I flipped to a scanned doctor's report. Cognitively sound until the end. Signed by 3 physicians. Dad reached for the camera. I stepped between. Touch it and I screamed, trespassing. The clip ended with silence so thick you could hear the sawdust settle. I uploaded it at 2 a.m. Title, "The Truth My Parents Didn't Want You to Hear." Within 48 hours, 1.2 million views. The internet did what it does best. Dug. Old neighbors posted photos of my parents' foreclosure notices from when I was 3. A cousin leaked texts where Mom bragged about the Montana windfall. Hashtags Bloomidfar Harper Hollow Fay Grandpa knew. Their lawyer begged for a settlement conference. I agreed, on my terms. The workshop, cameras rolling, live streamed to 300,000 subscribers. Delgado sat beside me in a suit that cost less than Dad's watch. Across the table, my parents, pale under the work lights. Delgado slid the final offer across the scarred bench. Drop the contest. Pay Ms. Harper's legal fees. Public apology on your socials, or we proceed to trial and play the full archive. A mom's lips trembled. You destroy your own mother. You destroyed yourself the day you left a 4-year-old in a snowstorm. My voice didn't shake. Grandpa's animals watched from the shelf like a jury of cedar. Dad signed. Mom cried glittery mascara onto the consent form. I didn't flinch. But the real rope burn came later. I edited the conference into a 10-minute documentary. No music, just the hum of the lathe in the background. Released it the same week their condo development in Scottsdale collapsed under SEC scrutiny. Turns out Dad had been funneling investment money from elderly clients. The video hit 10 million views. Job offers rolled in for me, speaking gigs, brand deals, a book agent. I turned them all down. Kept the channel small, honest, cedar-scented. 6 months later, I stood in the finished workshop, walls lined with new tools, floor swept clean. The camera rolled one last time. I used to think revenge meant making them hurt the way I did, I said to the lens. But Grandpa taught me better. Revenge is living well on the truth they tried to bury. I panned to the shelf. The carved menagerie had grown, one new piece. A wolf, mid-howl, eyes fierce. I'd carved it myself, fingers blistered, heart steady. Behind the wolf, etched into the cedar base, they left. I stayed. The gavel fell on a Tuesday in early spring. Judge Harlan, gray hair, kind eyes, voice like river stone. Read the order aloud. Case dismissed with prejudice. Defendants to pay plaintiff's costs in full. Mom's sob echoed off the courthouse marble. Dad stared at the floor like it might open and swallow him. I stood between Delgado and Mara, hands steady, the wolf carving in my coat pocket warm from my grip. Outside, reporters waited like crows. I gave them nothing but a quiet, "Justice for Grandpa," and walked away. The cameras caught Mom trying to hug me. I stepped aside, her arms closing on empty air. That clip looped on every local station for a week. They moved 3 states away by summer. Scottsdale condo foreclosed. Dad's real estate license revoked. Mom's Instagram went private, then dark. I heard through Mara's cousin that they were renting a 1-bedroom above a vape shop, arguing over whose turn it was to buy milk. I didn't check. Some doors you nail shut. The $2.7 million stayed in trust until I turned 25. Delgado invested it the way Grandpa would have, slow, boring, rooted. Timber rotated on 30-year cycles. A scholarship fund for kids raised by grandparents. A new roof on the community center where I learned to read. Every disbursement carried his name, Harold Harper Legacy Grant. I finished vet school debt, free, bought the parcel next to ours so the creek would never be dammed, built a small clinic behind the workshop, cedar siding, big windows, exam tables I sanded myself, first patient a limping border collie named Cash. His owner cried when I didn't charge her. Pay it forward, I said. She did. The channel grew anyway, not because I chased it, but because people kept coming back to the workshop. They wanted to see the wolf, wanted to touch the ledger, wanted proof that a girl could turn grief into something that lasts. I posted once a month, never about them, always about the land, the animals, the quiet mornings when the mist hangs low and the elk biggle like rusty trumpets. Last video before I archived the series, me at dawn, coffee steaming, breath fogging, I held up the wolf. This isn't a trophy, I said. It's a reminder. They thought abandoning me broke the story. Turns out it was just the first cut in the wood. I set the carving on the bench, walked to the door, and turned off the camera. The red light blinked out like a heartbeat finally at rest. Years later, 29 now, I still wake sometimes at 3:17 a.m., the exact minute Grandpa left. The house is quiet, but not empty. I pad to the workshop in socks, run my fingers over the wolf's snout. Outside, snow starts to fall, soft as forgiveness I'll never give. I whisper to the dark, we turned rough into beautiful, didn't we? The sawdust settles, the land stays, and so do I.